All right, hello everyone. This is our first talk of the Elk Room track. I don't know if we got a name for our track yet, but this is Chris Gray. He has over 10 years of industry experience in risk management, information security, and compliance. He has in the past served in leadership, audit, and technical roles, including the Director of the Information Security, Privacy, and Compliance Department of a Fortune 1000 retail organization, also an Operational Security Team Manager for the Department of Treasury and Federal Reserve. Currently, he is a Managing Principal for Accuvant Labs Enterprise Risk Practice, where his role is to provide world-class security compliance and IT risk management consulting services to Accuvant clients. And one of the more important things is hopefully this top button here. Developed and implemented the Accuvant Risk Assessment Program Approach, Toolset, and Engagement Execution Guidelines. And you've got, he is a member of ISSA, ISC2, IPP, he's a CISSP, plus a bunch of other things, and I'll let you get to your talk.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a fair warning. I'm doing this early in the morning for all you guys, so I'm going to try and keep it light. I'm going to try and keep it somewhat amusing. That being said, I have an agenda to cover, and I don't care if I cover it at all. I'm far more interested in giving to you guys what sounds interesting. The goal of this presentation is to discuss the validation of qualitative risk analysis. We'll get into it in a minute. There's no such thing as qualitative risk analysis, so I'm going to identify that first fallacy before we even get started. But we're going to get started. I apologize ahead of time. I like corny movies, and like I said, I'm trying to keep this something light and awake early in the morning, so forgive me when we get there. Number one, back to that corny movie. Anyone fan of Zombieland? Keep this in mind, this entire presentation. Keep the double tap concept in mind, because that's why you're here right now, is to discuss double tapping your risk assessments. This is really what it's about. Anybody here consider themselves to be a risk analysis person? Everyone raise your hand, because you do it every day whether you realize it or not. It's what you do. It's how we make decisions. Unless you're a total idiot that's going to get run over by the first car, the first minute you learn how to walk, or you're going to go down the toilet the minute you learn to stand up. Either way, it's what we do. And as we go down deeper into this, you'll start seeing, I hope, that this is exactly what the process is. So, let me start my wonderful clock here where I can make sure that I don't ramble as Chris is want to do. This is our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about assessing risk. Why? Because a lot of this won't make sense unless we cover the basics just to start. So anyone who's ever done risk work understands the baseline, the foundation, the taxonomy are what matters everywhere, because we can define risk. Last time I checked, in 63 different ways. So, again, we're going to discuss the fallacy of numbers. Maybe go on to it, there's no such thing as qualitative risk assessment. This is where we're going to dig into it just a little bit. Shoot once or double tap. We're back to that theory again. Types of validated assessments, who, what, how do we validate? This is where we're going to get to the meat of this presentation. And then we'll give everyone a chance for questions. So, first and foremost, assessing risk. There's a thing that I call the risk training. You asked me earlier, do I follow anything in particular? In this case, we're going to go back to ISO. You have assets, which are anything about you. You have threats, which is something which attempts to impact your asset. That can be a negative impact or positive impact. You have controls. These are the things which sit between our assets and our threats. If the controls are sufficient to mitigate all the danger, then we don't have anything. You have a perfectly controlled situation. If not, you have a vulnerability. Vulnerabilities we then qualify for impact and likelihood to determine risk. So understand that all the risk is a fancy vulnerability that someone said is probably going to happen. It's going to cost a lot when we get there. So, we get back to what is risk. That's a good definition for me. I'm simple. I'm a small town fellow. This is kind of where I want to live at. But we'll go through a couple other ways of looking at risk. Probability times impact, speculative opportunity loss, frequency of magnitude, effective uncertainty on objectives. If you probably recognize some of these if you've done much risk work, because these are the risk definitions that come from subject matter experts and the powers that be out there who claim to be definitive resources on this. So when you take a look at that, that's just the point being, you can see we have a lot of very similar definitions of risk, and we have some that are just completely out there, kind of on a different end. But at the end of the day, you get the practitioners together, and they can defend every one of these. So what you're going to hear me say repeatedly Decide who you are and who you want to be when you grow up. Decide what your definition of risk is and stick to it. There's nothing worse than changing the play, the game plan in the middle of the game. Because all the work that you've done, all the experience you've built, all the training you got on the hands of the people that you've been assessing the risk for, if you don't lose it, you just seriously compromise it. So it's okay to build over time. It's okay to change over time. But just make sure that while you're there and while you're in the process of doing work, keep it simple. You got to use these two guys. He only believes in quantitative. He's a firm believer in quantitative. And we get back to my friend, the dude, Mr. Lebowski here. It's all the same. There's nothing. And for me to say this, does anyone here disagree with me when I say there's no such thing as qualitative risk assessment? I'm going to ask you one question and break you. And we're going to pick on you just because you talked to me earlier. If there's no such thing, if qualitative is not quantitative, then off the top of your head, explain to me how I can have a critical risk and a low risk.
Sorry, Chris.
No problem. I'm waiting. We're waiting all day long because there's no answer. You have to have some sort of scale. Scales are based on numbers, whether it's interval-based, ordinal-based, cardinal-based, whatever it is. We have to have some kind of criteria where we can really understand what we're measuring and how we're measuring it. The point that I'm bringing up and why this matters in this presentation is the entire concept of validation of risk is simply giving more evidence to support whatever scale you live by. That's what this is about. It's just, you come up and stand up and say, it's an A. Well, okay. Someone wants to train me on this by saying, tell me how to explain the color purple to a blind man. Yeah, exactly. This is just where we're getting more evidence, more effort, more ability to try and convince these people what we're saying and to back our stances. Because again, risk-based decision-making is supposed to be logical, intelligent-based decision-making as opposed to kind of what we were talking about before about something compliance based. We just do this because we have to. This is a move back towards critical thinking. And it's big in the industry right now. You're starting to hear the new buzzword of risk-based security modeling and risk-based security programs and all this, which again amuses me because it's where we worked 15 years ago. But we're getting back. So I thought that risk GRC up there, just because this is something you need to keep in mind whenever you're doing a risk assessment. What are your goals? What is the rigor of testing that you want to perform? And what are the criteria for classification? Goals, if you don't start with the end in mind, you're on for a really long job, folks. You're just going to be going until you either run out of money or hit a wall. Levels of rigor, we'll get into that more later. This is where we're talking about validated risk assessments. This is where we're talking about, is it okay just to do control-based risk analysis? Well, we're going to sit down and I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to tell me answers. I'm going to take your word for it. We're going to move on. That's a perfectly good answer in many cases. However, today we're talking about validated, so no, that's a bad answer. We're not going to do that. And last but not least is criteria for assessment. Keep in mind, when we're doing that controls-based risk analysis, I'm taking your words, I'm assessing risk based on that. How do I suddenly take interviews and now weave into it the results of a vulnerability assessment and use that to determine whether my interview ratings were correct or incorrect or whatever? Think about what you're going to get yourself into before you get into it. Building an airplane flight is never a fun process. I've done it too many times, and every time, if you pull it off, throw yourself a party when you're done, because you've earned it. And last but not least, this one is, if you want to have any credibility as a risk assessor, the results must be defined, they must be repeatable, and they must be defendable. You're going to call somebody's baby ugly. You better have the ability to say, statistically speaking, based on the mirror effect of the left and the right side of the face, this baby is ugly. I mean, you've got to have the ability to say this, and you've got to have the ability to defend it. Again, this is critical information-based risk thinking that you're going to apply to where people are spending their limited time, money, and effort. Be able to defend yourself, because it's an ugly scene when you get up in front, in my opinion. If any of you guys were to hire me and I'm standing in front of you or your CIO or whatever, at the end of the day, you ask me a question and I go, yeah, I just lost that entirely. And it's just as important for you, wherever you're from, wherever you work, to have that ability to defend yourself. So, again, we go control-based or we go validated. Are we going to just talk to someone, our psychiatrist over on the side, or are we going to go take the results and dig deeper? Controls-based risk assessments. Here's the weaknesses. You suffer from an inherent capability of what I think. You ask me a question, I told you what I think. Does that mean it's right? No. Does that mean it's even in alignment with my policies? No, that's what I think. Someone arbitrarily pointed a finger at me and said, Chris, you're the subject matter expert, go talk to this guy. Okay, but again, doesn't mean I know anything better than this other guy who's over here. I may have just been the first person or the first name that came to mind. So keep that in mind. And the second one is, especially if you're doing internal risk assessment work, people will tell you what they think you want to hear, which is not good. You are, remember, doing critical decision making based on what you are obtaining. When people tell you what you want to hear, that gives you bad, false positives, bad, false negatives, bad, all sorts of stuff. Because again, you're going to base this whole report, which is going to get fed to, hopefully, someone with decision-making capabilities and your ability to write some big checks. And you're running off improper information. So, we're going to get back to our point. If one shot's good, two's better. Make sure they're dead. Go in here, find out what your people think, and then go validate. What does it do? Number one, it validates what they said. Or number two, it shows you that you have a disconnect. Your subject matter expert believes one thing and you are completely wrong. I did a risk assessment for a retail organization who shall remain nameless. But the situation was they would not let me do validated work. I gave them probably the best risk assessment report I've given in a year, based off of all their people knew their story well, and their documentation backed it up. They were hacked and penetrated. Less than a week later, it appears to have taken the better part of about 6.5 minutes for someone to bust them. They left a web interface open on a Cisco firewall with the default username and password available. Sweet. Oh no, they don't do that. Their policies say they don't, and all their people shook their head like this and said, no, we never do that. Yeah, they did. And they got owned. I mean, because once you're inside, that was your security perimeter. That was the firewall. It's also, by the way, the VPN concentrator and everything else. So you kind of imagine where that spider got into very quickly. That's how they got found out. Matter of fact, one of their business partners called them and said, why are you hacking me? So again, perfect example of why validation is important. So types of validated assessments. End of the day, I can validate in any way that I can pull information together. But we're going to go back to old hardcore project management. You got quality, schedule, cost, and scope. I can do 2 of these. I can't do all 3. Not unless we're willing to, understand where we're at. You want good quality? Fine. I can do a really small scope, really fast, and pretty cheaply. You want me to do all 3 at once? No, I'm just going to rate things. I'm going to give you less than qualified. So this is what to keep in mind. We said it earlier. Keep in mind what the goal of your risk assessment work is before you go any further. Understand where you're at. Fight scope creep like you do in any other project that's out there, because these things will take on a life of their own. You'll discover some new, cool stuff, and you want to go tearing off down that path. It's out of scope. It's a great opportunity for follow-up at a later date, but unless it is a critical decision factor on what you're doing, stay to the plan. Remember, critical decision making. You're trying to influence people with power and money. Don't go crazy. First risk assessment kind of work I did it for a CFO who took one look at it, looked at me and said, you speak like a 3-year-old and you are ignorant. Get out of my office. Brought me back in every week for 2.5 months until, and I quote, now you sound like a 5th grader, but I can understand you. The answer is no. I'm not giving you money for it, but you're getting there. That was scar tissue, a lot of it. It was very educational. But with one good thing, I went off down some weird scopes, and he took one look at it and said, you did not answer one question I asked. That's a maturing moment right there. So, let's talk about some ways of doing technical validation. Does anyone have a question when I'm talking about technical validation before we go any further? This is, I've done a controls-based review. I've talked to people, I've reviewed documentation, I've done interviews, I've talked to your subject matter experts, I've got all my facts down, I'm ready to go. What we're talking about now is some sort of effort where I'm going to go in now independent of what people have told me. I'm just going to validate. We'll get into it at the end of this example, for those of you who are like ISO friends, how ISO 27001, a bunch of examples of where there are things you can do to directly support the ISO if you're using it for risk assessment. So, that being said, hey, remember when? This is, sometime in the past, I did some work. I did a bunch of vulnerability assessment, I had a pen test done, I had a web app, application testing done, I had someone come in and design my web application firewall for me and put it in place. I've got some data. It's dated. It really wasn't necessarily done with a risk assessment in mind, but hey, this is some good stuff. I want to capture it. Maybe I can reuse it. That's what this previously conducted technical validation is about. Somebody, at some point in time in the past, went in and did some work, and as a result, we want to try and pull this in. Is it bad? No, that's good stuff. Is it good? Probably not. It's just like, saying I'm gonna have a party, I'm gonna have a Hawaiian luau-based party this weekend, but I'm not gonna go to the grocery store and buy anything. I hope I've got it all in the pantry. You might be able to pull it off if you're someone who eats a lot of poi and things like that. Otherwise, people are gonna be kind of looking at you funny. So the pros on this one, again, it's fast. The testing is done. All this stuff now is trying to make it fit and potentially translating it from whatever language was into the next. The end results will be better than just doing your thing. Because you've got some kind of technical validation, you've got some kind of rubber meeting the road, you know really what this is. The cons, again, the risk assessor, the person who's doing the work, was not there to define the scope or the intentions. So if you get an answer, consider yourself lucky. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you're stumbling onto some good facts. And the results suffer from timeliness. I may have done this review 6 months ago, but it is what it is. So is this a good way to do validation? No. Is it a better way to do than just based on control-based? Maybe. Your control-based people may have known about this data, and they've gone back and they fixed a bunch of stuff. So this, as you can see, could artificially skew your risk assessment results as a result. You're going to be going, oh, but back in July, we found all this stuff, so your patch program was awful. Well, maybe. Or they look back at you and go, no, I fixed all that. Your report is completely out of scope. It's not right. You're lying about me getting in trouble. So again, it's a method to keep in mind. That's all it is. The next one, simultaneous technical validation. This is a whole lot better. This is one of these where you're going to go assess risk and you work with him and you're going to go and run a whole bunch of nested scans and a whole bunch of configuration reviews and you're going to do a bunch of testing, access request forms, all this kind of stuff. Or you're going to go validate. You're getting ready to move it to the cloud. So while he's doing his interviews, you're going, pulling down all the reports and all the investigative reports, and you're pulling up the Cloud Security Alliance's questionnaire, and you're testing all their technical control. The point of it is, we're starting at the same time. We both have this rough, nebulous idea of what we're shooting for, and off we go. Why is that not good? Well, when I do a risk assessment, I always tell the technical folks I don't want them showing up at the same time as me, because I'm going to come back to that intelligence line over and over. I am the spy on the ground. I'm the guy who's going to show up first and hopefully identify some targets of choice so that the technical validation work can back up, can support what I'm doing. This is probably going to, if it's broad enough, if it's deep enough, but you have to understand this is an unaimed attack. This is a dark room. Someone's pulling a shotgun and pulling that trigger. It's still double tapping, but I may not be aiming at the right zombie. He may be over here. I may not hit the target. So it's just something to keep in mind. But it's still not a bad situation. It is fast because we're running in conjunction. The results will be better. But again, if you're doing this right, those of us with gray hair, scar tissue, you've done this once or twice. You should have a decent idea of what you want them to look for. So you can train them and you can aim them some. You can tell them, I really want you to look at this, this, and this, because in my experience, this is where we're going to see risks around here. But again, you're basing this on assumptions and best guesses. You're probably going to be at that 80% right mark, but it's just there we go. Again, maybe it's critical systems, processes, and here's something, especially if you're in a consulting organization like me, or if you're part of a larger company where you are a servant organization. You're IT for a non-IT specific company. You're coming in to help do a risk assessment for a business line unit. Even though you all work for the same company, you're an outsider. One of this is the nature of doing right now testing means it is hard to turn the Titanic when it's in motion. You've got everything lined up, you've got everything approved, everyone's happy. It gets to be very difficult to suddenly go, ooh, wait, yeah, I remember we were going to do that this weekend. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do X, Y, and Z. And now they're going to look at you and say, no, I've jumped through all the hoops. I've got change control done. I've got these people ready for you. You're now becoming a pain. So it's hard to pay attention. So is this good or is this bad? This is better than the last example we talked about. We're still not too good yet. Okay. Everybody knows the hashtags up there. This is Chris's opinion. This is the best option. I'm coming in to do a risk assessment for you. I show up week 1. I do all my interviews. My technical guys will roll in next week. Because everything I've learned, all your dirty secrets and evil little skeletons in the closet that you don't want someone to know about, I know about them now. And guess what my technical guys are going to go validate? I'm telling you, I've gotten the secret formula. I know where you live, I know where you sleep, I know what kind of a car you drive, I know who your bad friends are, I know all this if I've done my job right. Now the point of it is, now technical validation rolls in behind me. And we're back to that point of, I've tested your subject matter experts. They've told me what they think, or what they think I want to hear, or the truth. But they've told me what they know. Now I'm validating. Now I'm truly digging in deep and making sure that we understand what we see and how bad is it. Someone tells me, true story. Well, we patch. We're not real good at our patching, but we apply all of our patches, especially our Windows systems. They go straight out to Microsoft and pull them down every Tuesday. Okay, first of all, that's a bad situation in and of itself, but all right, at least you're patching. And then I said, my guys, and I found out there's not a patch applied to that Microsoft server farm in 2.5 years. To which everyone in the company is extremely amazed because we have a system that does that for us. Really? Who's your administrator? Oh, he quit about 2 years ago. Gotcha, not a problem. So again, big risk. They were unaware of it. They thought they were doing the right thing. Perfect example, though, of where technical validated risk assessment comes in. So, bad thing, or good things. This is aimed. This is, we're going for the zombie land double tap. It's a bright room. I've got the gun. I'm aiming straight at your forehead. You know, we're going to get a kill on this. And that is directly because we are aiming the testing activities directly at the goals that we're shooting for. Now, what's bad about this? Again, same as it is in all of them. You see, I'm having to get some kind of nitpicky, picky little cons down here. It's because there's not that many. It's like everything. Garbage in, lies out. What I get really depends on where I go, how deep I go, how much effort I put into it. And this one right here is actually pretty critical. This is a concept of what I call just risk discovery. I didn't cover something during the risk assessment, during the questions. We covered the stuff that we're out, but this is very targeted, this is very broad. I'm not likely just to discover something that we hadn't pulled out before. As we get to talk more and more broader testing, more and more aim testing, there's a better chance that you're going to stagger or stumble onto something else that maybe you missed in the past. Now we're talking value add. You're still getting the scope that you wanted out of it, but I have the ability to discover some new and interesting stuff as we go along at the end of the day. It's always nice to be able to come to them and go, here's what we look for. And oh, by the way, there's also these secondary and tertiary risks over here that we think are important. We might want to go into and look at them at a later point in time. Or this third one over here, we need to shoot that dead now. I discovered your patching is not working at all. I wasn't doing a patching review, I was doing a configuration review, but one of the discoveries is I was just running a config scanner against your box is the fact that you're vulnerable to everything that Microsoft has said is evil for the last 2 years. Not really a configuration issue, but something we want to fix. This is where we go. The other thing to keep in mind on this can tend to be more expensive for an organization in business costs. And that is now, not only are you putting up with me for a week, my friends are going to roll in next week. So now I'm interrupting the business flow for a longer period of time potentially. And again, everything I'm saying, I'm speaking this from a consulting point of view because this is how I do it, but it's exactly the same. When I worked in the industry and I was going to go do work, they treated me just like I was an outsider. I'm walking in, I'm getting in their way, I'm making life difficult for them, and every minute that I'm in their hair, I'm in pain. It's the same, it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of if you're an outsider, you're an outsider to the organization. Delayed. Okay, maybe still there. This is kind of the same thing as what we talked about before, but there's been a lapse. I came in, I delivered my risk assessment report, you delivered your report, you came up with what it was, and someone came back and said, how do you know? Oh, okay, so we're going to go look. There may be a gap. This may be something that we haven't seen. You know, we turned this report in 3 months ago. It's taken that long to get to the board, for them to take a look, for them to turn back around and say, I want more investigation down here. Maybe things have been fixed. Maybe it just took care of itself. Maybe the person, when I interviewed them, realized they were messing up and they have taken it upon themselves to go do the right thing. Now my risk assessment may not be true. I'm going to go try and do this technical validation and things can break. The problem won't be there anymore. Or the problem may have changed just enough to where when I go look for it in the first place, it's a little bit different. So, is this bad? No. Is it good? No, it's better than nothing, and it's better than praying. You know, just, again, dark room, pull the trigger. But it suffers from its innate weaknesses. Again, testing activities are directly tied to what you found. That's a good thing. Bad thing is they're not timed. They're not true necessarily anymore. And as a result, you can lose some of your impact and some of your ability to influence. So, and we get back to that same. Then I was even worse. Now I was here for a week and I've been gone for a month and a half. We're all back in the swing. Here comes Chris again with some very targeted, painful looks. Now then, we get to the next question. Who's going to do the testing? Normally I wouldn't necessarily bring this up, but this is something that's becoming very important. Anyone in here in healthcare? Yeah, you're familiar with that HIPAA little requirement where it talks about will you do internal assessments or will you do external assessments? Who's going to do your work for you? Why are they going to do it? Do you have it documented fully that says exactly why, so that when Chris shows up to do an OCR audit on you, you can tell me, well, we chose to do this ourselves. Really? Let me see your skill sets. Let's see whether or not you're taking an appropriate turn. This is becoming very important. Risk assessment is now a key driver in PCI, is a key driver in HIPAA. They're about to release that new omnibus rule, and seeing how 20 of the first audits that they did, 17 of the organizations were found to be deficient in risk assessment work, it studies. So this is something, I put this in here just primarily for those who respect the compliance world so that you keep in mind, you may know how to do this. It may not, however, be in your best interest to do it yourself. Maybe it is. It's just something to keep in mind. So who does the testing? Internal. Pros, hey, we know our stuff. We know the ins and outs. We're familiar with where the pain is. It's cheap and easy. I'm using my own people. And that is a very caveatable statement, just due to the fact of, yeah, it may not be cheap or easy, but at least I'm not writing a check to Chris.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, you've already paid for it. Now it's just a lost production cost. Cons, talked about that a minute ago, didn't we? That bias. You've been living here for how long? You know everything there is to know about this. I don't need to do any kind of critical thinking. I don't need to turn over any rocks I don't know about this. I already know it all. Yeah, you're wrong. We all get too close to the fire. And then the skill sets. Again, I'm not picking on you guys, but from a HIPAA perspective, if you're doing your risk assessment, and I show up and I start asking you all sorts of questions about what makes for a decent risk assessment, and I break you in the first two questions, now the entire quality of your entire effort, even if you spent all last year, is now called into question. So it's just something to keep in mind. External, big money. All right, hire me. I'm a professional. That doesn't mean I know anything more than the rest of you guys. It just means I get paid to walk around and say, I'm a professional. Third-party validation. That is one of the cool things. It will step away from the normal bias. It will, however, also step into the abnormal bias, which is, I have a methodology, I have a standard approach. I want to turn this into a repeatable, defendable machine where I can get out there, do your risk assessment, get off, move on to my next client, make my money, make everything where I want to be. There's a bias in that as well. It tends to keep me from looking broad picture. I'm almost back to that compliance checklist we were talking about. I have to go down my list. So if you're using an external, this is a benefit. However, you make sure that you aim them where you want them, that they understand the expectations you have on the scope of this to whether you're getting what you're paying for. If you're not asking questions of somebody who's going to come in and tell you they know best, give me a call when we're done here. I want to make some money off you quick, because that's just a very poor decision model. I mean, it's really where it comes down to. If you're bringing in an expert, let's make sure that expert is looking for what you need. We're back to that GRC thing we were talking about before. You know what the goal of your risk assessment is. If you use an external, make sure that they're giving you what you want and not selling you on their best way of giving it. Still equals more data, more analysis, everything. So again, it solves that problem. It is more expensive and can require more management effort. Go for it.
I don't agree with your bullet that said personally, where it says it's more expensive and that's a con. The fact of the matter is, if you're trying to get management's attention on a particular subject, and you give them two opinions, one from an employee and one from a hired gun that they pay more money for, the hired gun is going to have more credibility and more likely, because of the fact that they paid money for them, innately they perceive management, C-level management perceives them as having more credibility because they're paying for the opinion, whether it's right or wrong or different.
I didn't give you
To me, that's.
I need to give you one of these dollars I've got in my pocket, so you just did part of my presentation I was about to hit. The first thing I do anytime I go into any organization to do any kind of risk assessment or gap assessment or whatever, so I look whoever and say, is there anything that you have been fighting for the last 5 years that no one will listen to you?
Exactly.
They will listen to me at $200 an hour far more than they will listen to you at whatever they pay you. So when I'm saying it's more expensive, understand there are money costs and then there are common sense benefits
You're
to
more
it.
likely to get what you want in the end.
You're more likely to get what you want. You're also more than likely, boy, my days at the Fed prove this, especially if you work in an organization that does not understand what the raises risk appetite and risk acceptance mean, you're also more than likely to get some just stupid stuff shoved down your throat that you've got to eat, because they're going to listen to that hired gun. And even if I look at them and say, that's trash, they're going to look at me and go, yes, but it's trash that you're going to take out. So deal with it. And last but not least, greater risk. How many folks are still worried about running scanners in your internal environment and knocking down systems?
Wait, are we in this room or are our business partners?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a difference.
Yeah, exactly. But it really shouldn't. I mean, in all honesty, unless you're running Windows NT, and from a risk-based decision perspective, let me tell you now, if you are worried about a scanner like this that's knocking down your production environment, I have identified your risk. You are not business capable. You are not someone who has a robust and defendable architecture. You are someone who has propped stuff up with duct tape. And while I love duct tape, I love the Mythbusters, I don't want to fly in that duct tape airplane very far. So, keep this in mind. Now then, what tool? Who tests? Remember, please go back to this. Know your compliance requirements. I am a QSA. I am a PA QSA. I have a whole bunch of letters after that. I am part of that evil compliance beast. With that being said, I far prefer to walk into an organization that's doing some risk-based thinking all the way around. But make sure before you start down a risk management life cycle that you understand what your compliance requirements are. I will tell you almost nonstop the most critical risks that I identify in almost every organization I go to. There's two of them. Number one, you don't know where your data is. It's everywhere. Well, congratulations. That means you have to defend everything in your environment as if it's the most critical thing you own. And number two, you do not have a way of identifying, classify, treat, track, and manage risk. That affects every decision that you do when you look at it from a holistic point of view and from a risk-based perspective. It is your risk world. If you don't do those things and do them well enough that you can buy off, it affects everything you do. That is a critical risk from a risk perspective. Understand this, because this will drive what kind of a compliance-based risk assessment program you derive, that you build. So you just need to keep that in mind. Like I said, HIPAA actually comes right out and says, you have to explain why Chris did this versus you or the other way around. What do we test? Planes, trains, and automobiles. We get it all. We're going to go for it all. We're going to play with it, see what we can push, what we can hold, what we can turn out with. No, we're not. Scope, focus, not a 3-year-old. Keep in mind what your goals are. Keep in mind what you're after. It buys you more credibility. It also ensures that the results that you get will be more validated and more truthful to the needs that you have. Simple testing, quick and fast. I'm going to run this. Is that bad? Well, it's better than nothing, isn't it? It's going to tell you a whole bunch of things where you're going to have vulnerabilities. It will tell you where you have questionable services. It will tell you about where you have weak services. Wow, you're running SSL version 1. You are not SOX compliant. We're going to go down the whole list. It's just something that's easy and it's fast. It's a good baby step. It's better than nothing, and it will give you information. So, and the good news is especially if you use a broad enough spectrum, you've got enough controls. You can make it fit. I will give you a pocket knife and a hammer, and we will get a square peg into a round hole if we need to. We may have to walk at it sideways and lean our head to the side and swim, but we can find a way to make it fit. It will give you something that is better than nothing. It's something that you can all do. It's free. Like I said, I'm going to use Nessus as an example. Nessus and Nmap, I can do a complete mapping, a complete vulnerability analysis of your perimeter. If you're not aware of what's facing out there on your perimeter right now, what services are exposed, what versions are out there, then shame on you. Because it's not a question of are you going to be had, it's a question of when is that bot herder going to ride by. You better know on the face that you present to the internet who and what you are. Because they do. And even if they don't, sooner or later someone will stumble onto it. So this is just basic stuff. Probably something you're doing already one way or the other. But it matters. Cons, I can't spell, does not provide a targeted subset of observations. Again, broad. What does this give us the opportunity to do? Hey, this may be one of those discovery methods we were talking about. I may actually hit a lot of stuff. Maybe not, but I may. And it's a generic approach. It really is. The next one, targeted testing. This is the good stuff. I'm aiming for what I want to shoot. I know where I'm at, I know what I'm searching, I know what I'm seeking, that's what I'm after. I target it, I find tools, I find methods that will give me the answers that I want. It's good stuff. I mean, this is again, using my double tap metaphor. Open wide room, lights are on, I can see the bad guy, I have the weapon, you know, I'm aiming it while I'm ahead. It's more time, it's more expensive, because it is. I mean, you're going to have to use multiple tools. I'm using a web application, I'm using a penetration tester over here, I'm doing physical security reviews and doing social engineering exams. I mean, whatever your scope is, you're aiming at it. And the testing is potentially more disruptive, because if I'm aiming at what I want to hit, what am I aiming for? I'm aiming where you keep your goal. Fort Knox, that's where your goals are, that's where your assets are. That's what I need to assess. I'm going for the big stuff. I'm not aiming for, you know, if I get lucky hit, I hit it. No, this is the nightmare that you guys are talking about. You're going to knock my system down. I'm damn sure going to try. Because that's part of what I'm hitting. I'm aiming hard at you. Broad testing. There's my bias again. This is basically where I'm doing my aim testing, but I'm going to let it spill over the sides. I'm aiming for what I want to see, but I'm also broadening my scope enough within the scope of my exam where I can achieve some overflow. I'm going to. Why? Because I may discover stuff that none of us knew. I may discover a new problem. If I'm already there and I'm already doing it, and I am in an environment that will let me play that way, why not? Why not reach out and see if I can find that bigger picture? Because again, it's a great feeling. I always love it. I've done my work, I've validated myself. Oh, look what else I found. I have to show my value. You know, that's a mommy moment where you get to come running up and say, look what I did. How do we integrate testing? Okay, what I'm about to hand to you guys now is everyone roughly familiar with 27001, did they say? Precursor to 27002, blah, blah, blah. BS 17799. This is just, what I'm going to show you some stuff here is, people ask me, well, what is validated testing? I'm going to show you some stuff that is both, it's tool driven, but it's also some of this is process driven. Some of this is stuff that you have to put a human mind behind.